Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur, tell their stories, and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Today, the story of two employees who, when faced with their plant moving south, stepped up to save jobs for the Brockville area by starting a new company. Please welcome to the program Todd Stafford and Shelley Bacon from Northern Cables. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Jocelyn.
Shelley, let's start with you. Tell us the story of Northern Cables. And I know we have some pictures that we're going to show about the growth and development of Northern Cables.
Okay, well, thank you, Jocelyn. I'd like to announce that Todd and I worked together at Phillips Cables in Brockville, a famous Canadian public company for many years. And eventually, as it merged and became under the control of other companies, they sadly elected to make an announcement to all of us in February of '96 that they were closing the factory down. For me, this was my second factory closure in about 7 years. And this is all as a result of the first Canada-US free trade deals. They were closing all the Canadian factories. So on this particular occasion, soon after that, one of my colleagues came to me and said, "Hey, we have to do something about this." And over the course of the next couple of weeks, a number of names came out, and we got together and said, "What are we going to do about this?" And so Todd, myself, and our other colleagues that were present discussed options we had. And as it turns out, we finally realized we had to make products that we knew. And this is where the concept came from. Now, we worked on this evenings, lunches, weekends, days, and nights. And we worked on the project for quite a long time. It went on for months and months. And no one starts a company up from scratch and makes a product brand that's going to be recognized across North America without some pain. Sadly, it took us till about the summertime until we were able to meet up with a local business person who got wind of what we were doing. And he asked, "What are you guys doing? I'd like to meet with you guys." So we met with him, and they listened to our story, and they said, "Gee, we like what you're doing, but you need some more direction here." So we were then put in contact with a local entrepreneurial accountant who gave us much better direction on this. Soon things started to fall in place. And as it turns out, these gentlemen that we met up with in the summertime became business partners, and we became incorporated later that year, and we got the ball rolling.
That's an amazing story, Shelley. I mean, talk about not giving up, talk about the entrepreneurial spirit. You know, that's a Canadian success story. But what I'd really like to hear, Shelley, is tell us, what was it like in the early years? Was there ever a time that you thought you weren't going to make it?
Oh, yeah. So let me tell you, Jocelyn, it takes a lot of money to be in this business, and it takes a lot of thick skin. And we went out with bank loans. We put our own money in, a bunch of personal guarantees. And then soon we found out we needed even more cash. So there was a very hard cash crunch early on. Fortunately, one of the shareholders put some more money into the operation. I remember getting phone calls on the weekend saying, "When you come in on Monday morning, bring your checkbook." This went on for a long period of time. And I actually didn't know if we were making any money for the first few years. But by about year 4, we thought we saw a glimmer of hope. And fortunately for us, we've never turned back.
That's an amazing story. Now, Todd, we just got about a minute and a few seconds left. I know that Northern Cables has innovated continuously, and we love to hear about the innovation over the years, and we just got about a minute to do that.
Okay, I'll just quickly, we started with very old used machinery that was in our budget, designed our own tooling, modernized the process. Fast forward today, 3 factories, state-of-the-art equipment, a lot of custom built machinery. We have some patented processes. We're probably the largest commercial, industrial, and aluminum cable manufacturer in Canada now.
And you ship globally, is that correct?
We primarily Canada, the US, and some of our Canadian products end up all over the world.
And that's a success story. We need more Canadian products in the supply chain. I hear supply chain is an issue. How are you guys stepping up to that?
Well, we like to say that we don't have any materials that come off of containers. So all of our raw materials, 100% are North American. So we're not really beholden to the ports. But there's issues. There's issues with drives. There's issues with chips. So we're going through, but because we're such a domestic focus by philosophy, that's helped us.
And we'll be right back. We're back. I'm talking with Shelley Bacon and Todd Stafford of Northern Cables, located in Brockville, Ontario. Todd, why don't you tell the viewers what Northern Cable builds and how you do it? I'm sure everybody's interested in kind of understanding what you contribute to the Canadian economy.
All right. Well, Jocelyn, Northern Cables manufactures commercial and industrial power cables into the mining and industrial commercial construction markets. We also contribute very similar products into the U.S. markets. In Canada, our products are all CSA standard products, so they're all made to a Canadian standard. And in the U.S., they're a UL manufactured product. And the CSA products have such high regard around the world that we're able to export them into the Caribbean and other areas, primarily into the mining industry.
So I know you've seen a lot of growth over the years. Why don't you walk us through the growth and how many employees you have today?
Well, we started with, 5 or 6 working partners, and today we're at about 260 employees. We'd like to be around 280, 290, and we're working on it. We have 3 facilities, 2 in Brockville, 1 in Prescott, which is about 15 miles to the east of us. Our specialty is interlocked armor, so industrial power cables with interlock armor is the majority of our portfolio.
And so explain to the viewers what exactly that means.
Well, you take a power cable, so it's primarily copper or aluminum conductor, generally larger sizes. We don't build residential cables, up to maybe 3 or 4 inch diameter cables. We would make the bare wire from scratch using North American metals. We then insulate with either a PVC nylon or a cross-linked polyethylene insulation. We twist them together. We put waterproof jackets on, and we put interlock armor, either mechanical aluminum alloys or galvanized steel. And then some cables get jacketed again for waterproof or oil protection. Up to probably the smallest reels we ship power cable on are a 36-inch reel, and the largest cables are over 96 inches high. So they're very large packages.
So I know that Northern Cable, I'm going to pivot to Shelley, is very involved in the community, and we've got some pictures here. So Shelley, why don't you walk us through all the things you do? I know you do great stuff with the education field as well. So why don't you tell us all about this?
Well, sure. Thank you, Jocelyn. You see some pictures up on the screen. You can see there's a picture of Stephen Del Duca when we made one of our plant expansions. You see Todd, myself at the Briar held in Kingston, Ontario. You see us participating on the bicycle ride to raise money for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And you even see Premier Ford in our screen, who visited our factory. In these other pictures, you see us fundraising for the Salvation Army, for raising money for cancer research, for the YMCA, and all of these pictures point to the community involvement. We're fortunate to live in this area. We have the oldest original train tunnel in Canada, which was just showcased. We participate and promote all these young school-sponsored sports teams, and we never say no to these community efforts in the region.
It's great. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs and businesses are part of the community. And when businesses leave, they don't only take their jobs, they take their philanthropy. And that's why we need to keep businesses in Canada. But we're going to go to break in about a minute and 30 seconds. So, Todd, I'd like to go to you and talk about the biggest challenge running a business in Canada today.
Well, trying to keep our head above water, trying to keep up with the competition, whether it's from offshore or from south of the border. It's a challenge. Our regulation, the standards that we have to work to and work within just don't match anywhere against the products that we're competing against.
And Shelley, how about what do you see going on out there? How is jobs being impacted by some of the policies that we see?
One of the problems we have, Jocelyn, is that we're a Canadian manufacturer and we must operate under the rules and the laws of Canada. However, we are subject to competition which comes into this country from all over the world and seemingly without the same restrictions up to and including dumping of products into this country, which makes it very difficult to us to compete if we can't even buy raw materials for the price these goods enter Canada. And it would be helpful if we had more oversight from our federal government to support that.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of innovators, and they say it's like competing with their hands tied behind their back. They've got carbon pricing, they've got clean fuel standards, and yet product coming in doesn't face the same challenges. So we're going to go to break, but when we get back, we're going to dive more into the Canadian economy and policies that are impacting Canadian innovators. You're watching Canadian Innovators. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us. I'm here speaking with Shelley Bacon and Todd Stafford of Northern Cables. Now, Todd, I know that Northern Cables has been recruited heavily to relocate in the United States. Let's talk about this. What are they offering you?
Well, because we have a significant export business and we have 6 warehouses in the US, we are frequent targets of economic development agents from various states. Northern New York is a 15-minute car ride from my office right now. They have available space, very low electricity rates, which is the primary draw. And obviously they have less regulation than Ontario does. And relative to other states are even more competitive. Ohio, tax incentives, electricity incentives, hiring incentives. Jobs Ohio has an office in the Greater Toronto area, so they're just poaching in the pound. The southern U.S. states, they have reps that drive up and down the 401. They stop in to see us. They leave us all our brochures and show us all the buildings that they could offer us and whatnot. And a lot of the incentives aren't necessarily just temporary. Some of them are 5 or 10-year incentives, but they have a permanent, long-term, forever incentive of lower cost to operate.
Yeah, so let's talk about electricity. I mean, I know that you folks were pounded by global adjustment. A lot of our viewers don't know that there's 2 categories for electricity in Ontario, Class A and Class B. Class B carried a lot of the cost for the green energy program. Tell us about how it impacted you.
Do you want to let Shelley take that, or do you want me to take that, Jocelyn?
Shelley, either one. Whoever wants to grab that, grab it.
Okay. So Jocelyn, that's an excellent point. And I want to point out, this is one of the main reasons why we became involved in this organization, that the price of our electricity continued to escalate. In fact, reaching a point where the discrepancy to northern upstate New York between Canada and the United States was about $1 million a year in electrical charge differences. It greatly affects our business. And now with the carbon tax applied to anything we do, we're inviting other countries with a higher carbon footprint to sell those products in Canada while we pay a penalty for operating with a cleaner energy supply stream. So it's very difficult in Canada to operate like that and to get your message across to our parliamentarians.
Is there any other impact besides the carbon tax, clean fuel standards, and electricity that's making it difficult for you to compete in Canada?
Well, one of the difficult things, of course, we all have right now is labor, and one of the problems we have with labor, of course, is sustaining a workforce. And we go through great pains to recruit people, bring them in, and they may last a day, a week, a month, and they're gone. And we would like to see a little bit more buy-in so that we don't have as much turnover with people jumping around as quickly as they are at the present time.
So let me go to Todd. Todd, I'm hearing the same thing from almost every manufacturer, the lack of skilled labor and skilled trades. What would you do to address this?
Well, we've grown to 260 employees, and it has definitely been a challenge, both trades and production. I think generationally, we've created the problem by steering young people away from STEM and industrial careers. We've worked hard with local institutions, trying to get our brand out, even local arenas and things like that. Let people know, we haven't had a layoff in 21 years. We're good, stable employment. We pay a good salary. We have apprentices in our factory. We have co-op students. We participate in employment programs to try and get people into industrial workplaces. We sponsor 2 different bursaries for STEM in colleges and high schools. So we're trying to, get the message out as best we can.
Now, tell us about that bursary. That's a very interesting program that you have.
Well, we've worked with St. Lawrence College, which is the college in Eastern Ontario, to try and provide and put our money where our mouth is, and offer bursaries to students in STEM education. And the same as in the local high schools, students who are going into a STEM education, we offer bursaries for them to entice them into that as well.
Yeah, and there's such innovation in manufacturing. We just have about 30 seconds left. Todd, tell us about what you see happening in innovation in Canada.
Well, it seems to be that the real innovators that are doing it are private sector, small to medium-sized firms. They're doing it themselves out of their own pocketbook, whereas the big multinational large are really doing with federal money. It's just turning our money in a circle. But the real work is being done in small shops and garages, the Beauce, Eastern Ontario, Alberta, one end of the country to the other.
So I'm going to stop you there. We're going to go to break. We got more to talk about. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. Before we went to break, we were talking about the cost of operating a business in Canada. And I always like to talk to my guests about what policies you put in place if you were a politician to grow and maintain business in Canada. So, Shelley, let me start with you. You're either the Prime Minister or the Premier or both. What policies are you going to put into place to help business competitiveness and jobs in Canada?
Well, that's a pretty wide area, Jocelyn. I would just start off by saying that, I'm a little bit older than probably most people in the business these days, and suggest that Canada has become very socialistic in the last 25 years. A lot of our policies these days are aimed at assisting people how not to work. And I think we need to turn that ship around. We have countless businesses for wanted job ads posted on the front of their buildings, and yet we're paying people not to go to work. We clearly need to take more of an industrial working approach to the government and encourage people to take these careers, which are excellent careers, and they provide good skills. We require high education. I think we need to encourage people to, rather than collect money to stay home, they need to be able to come and work in the workplace.
Absolutely. And that sense of purpose is not just good for the economy, but it's good for people's mental health. Now, Todd, you're up. What policies would you put in place?
Well, I think very similar to Shelley. That's why we're partners. But I think what we need to do is balance entitlements against accountability and responsibility. So it's great we have a great economy and a developed culture, and there's lots of entitlements for people. They're entitled to health care and sick days and whatever we can think of the day. But there's no trade back where actually people have to be responsible or accountable for those entitlements. And that seems to be a big issue. Another piece that's somewhat related is I think we need to define the ratio between public sector employment and private sector employment so that we can maintain and grow our GDP. The balance has shifted so heavily towards the percentage of public sector in a private business. If all we had is everybody in the office and nobody running machines, we wouldn't last very long. So we need private sector employment to drive GDP. And the third part is not related to employment, is related to regulations. And I think we should apply all regulations at the port, whether it's environmental regulations, labor regulations, taxation regulations, apply them at the port, make it a level playing field, and we'll go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Canadian innovators can compete with anybody around the world. We just need a level playing field. So I'm going to ask each one of you. Northern Cables has been in business for 25 years. That's a long time. And I'd like to find out from each one of you what your greatest accomplishment is.
Wow. Well,
Shelley, you go first.
okay. Um, I got to say that one of my mentors gives a speech about the odds of, first off, succeeding to start up, let alone reach the level of 25 years and to be to this size. So I'm just pleased that all of my partners and everybody that works here have reached this milestone. Our jobs that we have here, Jocelyn, are not just labor jobs. We have engineering jobs. We have counting jobs. We have design jobs. So these are a lot of high skilled jobs that otherwise would not be located in Canada. And I'm eternally grateful to all the people that have joined us, and we've been able to improve their life through working at Northern Cables.
Todd, I'm going to give you the last word, your greatest accomplishment.
All right. Well, I think it's really getting Northern Cables to the point now where it's self-sustaining. Northern Cables is bigger than the original people who started it. 4 of the 6 founders are retired, and we're bigger and better. And it has some perpetual motion in place that we're just rolling along. It's much bigger than any one of us.
Well, it's a great Canadian success story. I thank you so much for giving jobs and prosperity to the Brockville area. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks to my guests, Todd Stafford and Shelley Bacon from Northern Cables. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for joining us. If you're an innovator, we want to hear your story. Write to us at Canadian Innovators at thenewsforum.ca, and we'll see you next time on Canadian Innovators.